Greetings and welcome to Enigmatic. Hope you're doing well today. It's sunny where I am, so it's a nice day out. It's been a little bit of a frustrating day though, since the veterinarian didn't want to have accurate information on their website about whether or not they were open today. Because it definitely said 8 to 12 on Saturdays and walk-ins on Saturdays, but the voicemail system that they have says it's every other Saturday and then doesn't specify like which every other it is. So anyway, I am visiting you today in the form of a reflection and an exploration that is also going to be what I'm using as a meditation for this morning. So we're going to figure out where to start. We might just start speaking in order to figure it out. Or there could be a long break, a long pause as there's just some pondering. This is going to be centered on expression, but there's also themes and elements around the nature of errors and mistakes that are implicit to the discussion. I think I've shared and probably have said it repeatedly that I do find this activity hard, even though I enjoy doing it. That's the case for me with a lot of things. There's a lot of things that I enjoy doing, but I find it hard to do them. Some might say that's a trauma response. Could be. Sometimes I wonder if it's a trauma response coupled with certain elements of where I've gone intellectually and cognitively, and the honest binds that I find in certain things, such as what to believe, what to put our faith in, what to think, what to do, right? But here, you guys see this light fucking up right now? Okay. But here, now, I had a few instances in the past couple days that made me want to reflect on this, I guess it's like an inner pain I feel with my own expression. It often happens when I feel that I might be interpreted as coming off as intelligent or, hanging my intelligence over someone, or if I think I might be coming off as combative or confrontational, or if I feel that I've had an attitude that I didn't need to have. I could have said or shared something more elegantly and gracefully. But in both instances in which were the catalysts for this video today, in both of those instances, I found that the response and the perception wasn't what I was concerned about from the people that would have that, perception. So I was wrong, right? But at the same time, even though, like, even after being wrong, there's a part of me that still feels bad for what I said. And in one instance, like, I went back and reread what I said, and it wasn't like I just called it like I saw it. It wasn't rude, it wasn't indignant. I didn't cuss anybody out. There were certain things that came up in the conversation. It seems like it kind of lost its way. I highlighted what I noticed and, ended it, right? And, there's a part of me that even after reading it and them having like an okay response to what I said, I still feel so bad about what I said. And there's a lack of felt sense of freedom of expression that I feel from within. And I think that this is something that comes from a variety of places and sources and is impacted by a lot of different factors. We've already talked about, how I've written the sentence, I will practice not talking, over and over and over again, and how I, had signs around my home that reminded me of that as a child. And so it's like maybe I never learned in certain types of debates with certain types of people to, feel okay with what I say and how I say it. Um, even if I do have a little bit of an attitude, like why are my emotions not valid enough to show them in some regards, right? It's very interesting because in one instance, like the individual didn't even notice that I had kind of an attitude with my response. So at that point, it was another time that I was wrong and I had egg on my face too, while trying to be a good person. Yeah, because I apologized for how I came off. And so this is definitely emblematic of being too hard on myself, right? And it's like, well, where does that come from? And it's like, yeah, I'm definitely sensitive to the more um, negatively critical judgments of society and things like that. And I think that sensitivity also comes from negative judgments that I had to be sensitive to growing up. But even as I'm talking to you now and thinking about this and trying to explore it and open it up, it feels like there's, this hard shell around all of it because I still feel bad for what I said. And I didn't even say anything. Like I just highlighted some points. That's all I did. I had what in philosophy would be called an argument, even I wasn't arguing, right? It's like one of those words that has two meanings, but like the meaning that has the negative connotation is what people usually pay attention to. Because I mean, as creatures, we kind of all have negativity biases, but if you have certain types of psychological predispositions such as depression, then your negativity bias is exacerbated and amplified. So anyway, and that's I'm glad that I said that because maybe that's a part of what I'm dealing with and interacting with myself here is my own negativity bias relative to myself. Um, because and the other thing that came up in my mind while I was having this discourse with you is that it wasn't until a few years ago that I started to kind of understand and accept what people told me about me being intelligent. And I think that there's a part of me that still doesn't know what to do with that because sometimes it's looked down upon. Like anti-intellectualism is a thing. Some people don't like smart motherfuckers. And I don't think that that's like I don't want to deal with the bullshit of people not liking me. Like I don't really care if people don't like me or not, right? Like yeah, we're social creatures, but for the most part, I have like the connections, the close connections that I need. Otherwise, I just want to get by like well in the world and like have a good impact on other people, and hopefully they have a good impact on me. But just try to leave the world better than I left it in some ways. Yada yada yada. So, but even as I bring up like anything like surrounding my intelligence or quote unquote intelligence, because it's like what the fuck is that anyway? Um, that's like another like philosophical rabbit hole that I fall down into a lot of times. But even as I bring that up, there's this aspect of how dare you bring that up? How dare you express anything about like your struggles with something like that? Um, so there's like a invalidation of my feelings because my experience is my experience. And like at the same time, like as I reflect even further, I'm not sitting here like boo hoo, woe is me about the shit. I'm just like talking about it, right? Like the fuck, like why? Where does this self-deprecation? Why? Like it is brutal, and it's so regular that oftentimes I'm like I don't realize how brutal it is. Um, so yeah, I'm just like unpacking a lot this morning. I was definitely sitting with like a lot of anger. And that was the other thing too, is that like in the instances in which I was having these conversations that I keep bringing up, like I definitely had this kind of, spark that was lit in me by what was said. And it's like, why does the spark have to get lit? I can think something is silly. I think it could be goofy. I could think it could be wrong. Shit, I could think it's dumb, but why do I have to get kind of like irate about it? And granted, like, I try not to show that, I'm feeling some type of way about it in like a negative way because I don't want somebody to feel negatively for having like expressed themselves. But, sometimes I'm like, okay, that was fucking dumb. Like, why do I gotta deal with this? And, I think some of that comes from like burnout because I'm usually a very patient person and I'm just like so tired right now. And I'm just like, I'm even cognitively drained. I'm in shock by how this video is going right now. A lot of times when I get ready to do one of these I have to kind of like prep myself because I I worry about not being able to locate the words that I want to use, and think that I'm just going to stutter up the entire time and not say what I want to say. And by the end of it, not be satisfied with what I shared and how it came off. There's a lot of like boxes I want to check for something to be pleasing to me. But at the same time, like, this is an exercise in expression. That is one of the reasons why I am doing it. And I am doing it so that other people can exercise expression for themselves as well. It's just one of those things, like, should it be truly and purely unadulterated? Probably not. It kind of comes back to something else I think I said in a different video where, some people who say that they're just like raw in their speech, it just means that a lot of times they just don't think before they speak. And so really it's like, are they really saying what they mean to say and want to say? Or are they just saying how it like first pops up into their mind? Um, and so the other thing about this, entire topic too, and like me expressing myself is, I want to say things correctly for me, right? Like the way in which I mean them, so that I could be understood in a certain way or as close to that as possible, because I am the source of the information that I generate and share, right? Naturally, you want it to be interpreted a certain way. If you mean it in a certain way and like you want the interpretation to match the meaning, you want that isomorphism to, be there. And so that's why I like highlighted at the beginning that I think, mistakes are like a thread that goes through this, because I think that another reason, aside from not wanting to seem like a dick in social situations, as well as, getting frustrated in social situations, um, I don't think that it's acceptable for me to make a mistake, even in those regards. And it's like, where does that come from again? It's like, okay, well, childhood, um, I was terrified to make mistakes. I like, it's one of those things I've said to people, plenty of times. I was a manager at my old job. Somebody make a mistake, and mistakes happen. I try to be understanding about it. But why is that understanding not extended to myself at all, right? So like, I'm not allowing myself to make mistakes when I do these videos. I mean, I am allowing it because that's the reason why I don't listen to them before I post them, because if I listen to it before I post it, I'm very likely to not post it. So if I just post it and it's up, I'm like, okay, well, it's already up. Like, I already put it there, right? Um, and so that's like the way in which I'm trying to mitigate and ameliorate the issue of not being okay with my own mistakes. And I, really, like, I just never felt like I was taught that, negativity bias again. I'll never forget how there was a time that it was when I was grounded. It was a year that I was grounded for 9 months. I also caught like the worst beating of my life. And I was doing like the managerial duties of the apartment building. I was like 10 years old. And so I was outside like mowing the grass of the apartment building. I remember it was on like Colorado Boulevard, and I was like facing the traffic. The grass was kind of tall, and I was a 10-year-old pushing a lawnmower, and I accidentally rolled over a sprinkler head. And I remember just feeling this abject sense of terror, like when it happened, because I knew it was going to happen, and I was completely fucking right. My dad chewed me the fuck out, and he made me feel so fucking dumb and stupid because I missed the sprinkler head, right? Those experiences left a bigger impact than any positive ones that told me that it's okay to make a mistake. Then like couple that with, being like indoctrinated into not speaking, like no wonder I have an issue with expression. And it's just interesting that it's like coming up now, and not now, but it's been creeping back up over time, because in college I kind of popped off a little bit. I remember in some classes, like if I really disagreed with something that a professor said and I felt like I had valid argument against it, I definitely would share what I had to say. And I might have been a little bit abrasive. And I think that that was more of a rubber band effect from everything that I had to stifle when I was younger. And having been kicked out of my home and then estranged from my family at that time, like there was nobody to like get mad at me except for, my professor, right? So the repercussions weren't there anymore. But it's interesting how the effects that I was worried about, and that affected me as a kid, that I rubber banded away from in a certain way, started to creep back up as I got older and like after college and things like that, and started having more and more life experiences. being human is a weird thing. I mean, being any conscious thing is fucking weird, I guarantee it. But being human is a weird thing. Yeah. So all this being said, like, if I made any mistakes, thank you all for listening to my mistakes. And thank you all for listening to my expression right now. And, the takeaway is that, I try to be a thoughtful and mindful person. I think that that's something I, will always prioritize, but I need to be a little bit more like freewheeling in what I want to say and share. Um, Even like with myself, you know, um, I tend to, be very particular even in my own journals to the point that I'm like paralyzed from writing because I have this, abject fear of like, what if somebody like reads this and like when I die posthumously, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, that's so egoic. Like, get the fuck over that. Like, get out of here. And like, and I think that comes from like, one of my favorite philosophers. That's something that happened to him, but I had even had to write it in one of my journals that his intent with his writing in his journals was different than my intent in my writing with these journals. So like the fuck ever on, the concerns that I have, right? But yeah, it's just, there's certain ways in which we're, kind of conditioned and indoctrinated into, I felt like I had to be so secretive when I was growing up. And so it's, a lot of times I don't know what to share. And it's funny because people think that I'm so open and I'm like, there's plenty to this glacier that I'm just like keeping to myself. But at the same time, I do want to like put good out there. And so like my vulnerability like comes from that place, just wanting to do well for others. So all that being said, like thank you all so much. I appreciate it. Whoever happens to listen to this, just thank you. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'm gonna go ahead and continue with mine. Maybe work on some expression and not give a fuck about it. And yeah, be good to you. Be good to others. Have a great day. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll talk to you next time. Peace.